Hello everyone and welcome back to another Wizard101 video. Today, this is going to be probably the most requested video I've had of all time in my entire history of my channel, and that is a pet guide. Now, I will say, I was a bit hesitant to make this, not because I didn't want to, but mainly because I personally am not a master of pets. I know the basic overview, and I've obviously gotten a few max pets, but I wouldn't say I'm like the most experienced when it comes to pets in this game, because they are pretty complicated. But at the very least, I feel like I can give a very decent overview of pets and everything you really need to know about them in this game. Now, first off, you get a pet part of the main quest now at like level 5 when you go to Old Town, but once you hit, I believe, level 7, you can come to Merle Ambrose here and start the Pet Sounds quest. Now, yeah, so you actually need to do that quest first. Now, when you do that, he gives you the quest to go to Pet Pavilion. Now, Pet Pavilion is where you train your pet. It's where everything related to pets happens. It's in the commons right past Prospector Zeke here. I figured I'd do this on console edition just so you can see the beginning and see the experience of having nothing to do with pets instead of me just walking around on a character that's already unlocked it. So you come to Pet Pavilion here. Before we get into the overview of pets, I'll be your tour guide in Pet Pavilion today. I'll take you around, show you what each thing does, and everything about everything you can know. Now, first off, the pet shop boys here, this guy has jewels, which is cool. This guy is talking my ear off and I don't care. This guy sells pets, which are kind of useless. I believe that he also has recipes. So yeah, you can make pet jewels of different types. These might potentially allow you to get like pet giver or something to sock a jewel on your pet. The pet stats jewels can also be useful if you want to try to get like mighty or something on your pet. Generally, that's the only real thing that's useful in this store. If I keep looping around to the right, we have Way of the Ninja Pig and the dance game, which I'll explain later. I think dance game is the best game to do. We have Gobbler Drop right here. Then we have the hatching kiosk, which is probably where you're going to be doing most of your hatching from. You can sort by pets and also sort by talents if you press the start button. Generally, hatchmaking kiosk is where you're going to be doing everything from. However, if you come into the hatchery right here, you can also hatch pets from right here. Now, the reason why you would hatch in the hatchery rather than hatching kiosk is the fact that it is much cheaper to hatch here. You can also lend your pet to other people if you hatch from here. So this sigil, if you get on with someone else, you'll be able to hatch pets with them. If you get on this sigil, you'll be able to hatch 2 of your own pets. Coming back outside, we have Sir Nigel Higginbottom here, who sells some things for arena tickets. You have Grumpy Gobblers right here, which is an interesting game. You have the maze game and then the cannon game, which I wouldn't really recommend either of those for training your pet because they tend to be very long. We have a pet snack vendor here who will trade pet snacks for arena tickets, which is by far the worst way you can get pet snacks. And then finally, if we loop back around into this shop right here, which is gonna take forever with a loading screen, we have the West End girls who, okay, you're doing unskippable dialogue. They will sell some different snacks. All of those snacks are useless. This one allows you to get breadcrumbs, which I don't know what they're used for, and then recipes for different pet snacks. Generally, I would say none of these are super useful except for this mega snack, which if you do fishing, you can trade a Bubba Fish, Nature's Wrath, and pristine vials for a mega snack, which is pretty good. Otherwise, I think that's it for your tour. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to leave a review, drop a like, hit the sub button if you enjoyed it. Otherwise, continuing on with pets. Well, now that we've come to pets, let's go over pets themselves and kind of generally an overview what makes a good pet in this game. So first off, if you come to your settings menu and scroll down to the pet section, which is right behind my camera right here, I can turn that off for a second so you can see pets. Boom. Press A on it. There you go. Now you can see here there are multiple stages to a pet. So there are baby, teen, adult, ancient, epic, mega, and ultra. Now ultra only really unlocks jewel slots. They get new talents all the way up to mega. You can see their talents right here. These numbers are how much they have of each talent, which realistically doesn't matter that much. It might matter to some people if they know more about the talent, but to you, they probably don't matter that much. Right here are stats, and if you hover over them, you can see what each of them dictate. So you have strength, which is damage, pip chance, resistances, outgoing healing, armor piercing, stun resist, and the cost to cheer while swimming in the pet derby. Nobody cares about pet derby. The stats dictate how much, say, damage your pet gives. So, for example, if you got, say, balance giver on this balance pet, if you maxed out all of these stats, it would get up to like 6% damage. And if you had 0 in all the stats, or 1, as you can see I have, it would only give 1%. So that's how pet stats work. Now to improve pet stats, you basically play the games and feed your pets pet snacks, which will improve the stats. Now in the description below, I'm going to leave a link to a pet stat calculator. Now what this does is when you input all of these numbers into it, it will allow you to see what percentage, say damage or resist, it's going to get at max level. Now it rounds up to the nearest number. So if it says something like 6.6 or 6.7, that'll be a 7. The reason why this is important and useful is because each of these stats right here, this pet is pretty pathetically weak because it is a first generation pet. Every time you hatch with a pet that has better stats, the baby of the two will also have slightly better stats, and it's kind of random up until you get to a large amount. Now, generally, you want to have 255 plus in each of these stats. That's just a general rule, but you definitely want at least 250 in each of these stats. Now for damage, the important stats are strength, will, and power. For resistances, it is agility, strength, and power, I believe. You can see if you hover over them what you want, but those are the main ones you want to focus on. Now let's talk about a question I've been asked a lot, which is what pet should I get? Now the way to get pets generally nowadays is to go to the hatching kiosk right here, and if you press down on the right stick, you can see what cards they give. So you can see I can press that down and I can look at each of their cards. Generally, the widely accepted answer to the question of what pet should I get is anything that gives a good item card. Now, for example, the Kookaburra pet right here gives a blade. At Ancient, it'll give the ability to cast Leaf Storm, which is going to be very useful to have. Now, it doesn't appear that there's any in the hatching kiosks because I can't press on them. But you can see if I long press Y, you can see like the spell cards and whatnot. Generally, widely accepted is to get an item card. Now, I've come to tell you something, all right? I'm the messenger here. Realistically, the pet body, what you have as a pet, does not matter. Obviously, it is good to have a pet that gives an item card. Something that gives, say, Sharpened Blade, or Gargantuan, or a Blade, or a Feint, or Deer Knight, whatever. Those are all going to be super useful to have, right? But you don't need them. Any pet in this game, if you hatch them enough, can get up to the maximum stat range, and with the right talents is going to be just as good as everything else. So if you want to have a really cute pet, you know, something that's unique that other people aren't going to have, you can go for that. There's not going to be any issues, and it's not going to harm you by going for that, besides removing the item card that you might potentially like. And the reason why I say that is a lot of people keep asking me, what's the best pet in this game? There are better pets. Like, for example, the Enchanted Armament right here gives Sharpened Blade, which is very useful. There is some death pets that give Feint and Deer Knight and whatnot. Those are incredibly useful as well. Anything that gives a blade is useful, but that doesn't mean that is your only option. That doesn't mean that that's what you should go for. Personally, I honestly prefer to go for pets that, you know, might not give me as useful of an item card, but that look unique and look cute, because I think that the whole aspect of this game of being absolutely optimum at all times is kind of like limiting in a way. It almost makes the game feel a little boring when, like, you know, the whole point of the game is to have fun and be unique and build your own character, and part of building your own character is making a unique pet. Now, before I move on to pet talents, just quickly to cap off this section, for every other school, it doesn't matter, but for life, the Kookaburra pet gives Leaf Storm. So if you get this early on, you can have an AoE pretty early. Once it gets to Ancient, it trains Leaf Storm, so you can use that for a 4-pip AoE. For death, there is the Gloomy Eye pet, which currently isn't in the hatching kiosk, but it does give a death version of Humongo Frog, which is also a 4-pip AoE. And then finally, the Grim Squeaker pet, which isn't in here yet either for death, gives the Deer Knight card. Those are the 3 pets I would really recommend for life and death. Every other school, it's going to just be a matter of what item card you find to be the most useful. I think that life and death are the exception because they don't have an early AoE. So if you want an early AoE, those 2 pets, fine. Otherwise, let's move on to talents. Now, if I hide my camera again, you can see here, if you press the start button at the top right, you can search for specific talents. Let me bring myself back. Now, there are basically 2 widely accepted pet types of talents in this game. There is something called a triple double, which is 2 givers and a dealer, along with spell proof and spell defy. Spell proof is the larger universal resist, usually gives 10 at max stats, and spell defying is 5 of universal resist, whereas dealer gives 10 damage and the 2 givers give 6. Now you can improve those stats even more if you add something like a mighty jewel to your pet, which if you increase the strength, it is going to increase all of those stats to like 11 resist, 6 resist, 11, 7, and 7 damages. There is something else called a quint damage pet, and this is the other commonly accepted. For most hitters, this is what they go with. It is just 5 damage talents all stacked at once. So it is the dealer of your school, 2 givers, which is the universal giver and the giver of your school, and then the boon and then the universal boon. So that is going to be 5 damage talents. Out of a pet like that, you're going to be getting like 40 damage, which is insane. It is probably the most sizable increase of damage you can get at pretty much any level is if you make these 5 damage pets. Now, what I would recommend is if you're a damage school, you could go for the 5 damage one. If you are a support school or even just generally other schools, I would personally lean towards a triple double because having that resist can be super useful as well. Obviously, you can mix and match. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you want to go for 4 damage talents and then spell proof, you can. There's no reason not to. If you want to add pierce to your pet, there's no reason not to. But generally, those are the accepted talents. So what you want to do is you want to come to the search for talents, find talent, and you know, I just realized that this is going to be really painful to type. So let me type up balance, search. Boom. Now I can see all of the balance talents right here. So say I want balance dealer on my pet, and if I press RB, say I want balance giver. You can only search for 2 talents at once, and then you want to press left trigger to search for all of those talents. Realistically, right now, I don't know. Okay, I don't even have an adult pet, so I can't search for them. I don't know how full the hatching kiosk is on console yet, but at some point, this is going to be full and you'll be able to find a pet. If not, find something with a decent enough talent and hatch it and go for it. Now, this process is long. There is no way to speed this up. It is going to suck. Pet hatching in Wizard 101 is not easy, and it is very, very long. To people who are asking like what's the easiest or best way to do this, there is no real better way. You just gotta do it. Every 24 hours you can hatch a pet. You can buy the Puro's elixir in the crown shop, which will allow you to hatch a second time in a day. So if you get a pet, if you fail that pet and you want to hatch again, you can reset your hatching time for 400 crowns. Honestly, usually I just let the timer run out and then hatch again. Now, once you hatch that pet, you train them up to adult, you see if they get 2 of the talents you want, and then you hatch them again. You also want to make sure that the pet stats I talked about earlier are also high enough to be considered good. So again, 250 in basically all the stats, but strength, will, and power are going to be the most important. And then agility is also very important if you want a resist pet. If you want a quint damage pet, strength, will, and power are the only things you need to focus on. Triple double, strength, agility, will, and power. All right, now that is a general overview of everything you need to know about hatching. It is a long process. Keep that in mind. This video is not going to make it any easier. It's just going to explain how to do it. Now, one thing I do want to talk about before I move on to the next section of this video is the fact that this is an expensive process. If you want to get your pet at a very early level, that is realistically not going to happen. And the reason why is that in the hatching kiosk, if the pet is at max level, it's going to cost 90,000 gold to hatch. Now, you can find pets that are like adult level, and those will only cost probably about 20,000 to hatch, which is much, much cheaper. But obviously you come at the potential fault of the fact that they might not have stats as good as you want, or they might not have, you know, the talents you want. So it's a trade-off. You know, you can spend less gold to get something that is potentially a little bit worse. Just keep in mind those stats that I told you guys to focus on and the talents I told you to focus on, and hatch at your leisure. All right, next up, let's talk about pet snacks real quick, because this is probably another question that a lot of people are going to have. What are the best pet snacks to get in this game, and where can I get them? Well, generally, you obviously get pet snacks throughout just questing. I personally recommend if you have a rank 6 and over, keep those, never sell them. In terms of getting other pet snacks, it's quite a bit difficult. At the bazaar, they'll usually sell things like Shanta pudding, and then I believe the pepper, I forget what the pepper's called, but you'll see it's a rank 7. Usually those are in the bazaar pretty frequently. There are pet snack vendors throughout the worlds that you can buy from as well, but most of those pet snack vendors are not going to give you anything good. There are some vendors where you can craft pet snacks with fishing as well. If that interests you, look up fishing pet snack vendors. and you'll find them. I'm not going to include them all in this video because there are a few of them, and generally most people don't do fishing, so I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm adding a little bit of homework. If you like fishing, you can craft mega snacks that way. Now, what is a mega snack? I just mentioned that. You might not even know. Anything that is rank 8 and above and gives probably about 30 plus stats is considered a mega snack. Obviously, in my Is It Worth Buying video, I mentioned that the mega snack pack in the crown shop right here is basically a scam, and you never want to buy this. That goes very true, because you can get a lot of mega snacks, especially in later worlds. You can get them just by playing through. Like Waterworks drops mega snacks semi-frequently, but beyond that, there are 2 other ways to get mega snacks that tend to be pretty good. First off, the Mirror Lake dungeon, which is the final dungeon in Zafaria, drops 2 guaranteed mega snacks every time you do it. They're only plus 30, they're not plus 50, so they're not the best in the game, but they will generally save you a lot of time. If you're spamming out Mirror Lake runs and then during double pet XP you go and use those, you're going to be getting a massive amount of XP for your pet. Now, the other main way to get mega snacks is from gardening. I've had a few people to ask me to make a gardening video as well, which I can make, but I'm not the most experienced at gardening, and I'm going to be honest with you, it's probably not going to be the best video in the world to explain gardening. There are many other guides, on YouTube that are going to do it way better than I can. But if you have evil magma peas or couch potatoes, which you can both buy in the crown shop or you can farm them, there are enemies in Mirage, and the bears in Grizzleheim, like the ice bears in Saversted Pass, can drop couch potatoes. If you farm those up, they're guaranteed going to drop a mega snack every time you harvest them, and that is generally how most people get mega snacks. Now that you know about snacks, let's talk about the actual best way to train your pet, which once you have completed a game 25 times, you are allowed to skip the game. Now you can see the counter right up here, and you don't need to perfect the game. In most of the games, you only need to get like 3 out of 5 of the rounds. Now, my preferred method is to come to the dance game right here, press the play button, and then you just play the dance game. It's a very easy game, and if you for some reason you have very horrible like pattern recognition, whatever, if you can't listen to the sounds and figure out which one it is, or if you for some reason can't understand the order, don't do this game, I guess. Play another game, but this is going to be by far the fastest way to do it. And once you have done this 25 times, you unlock the ability to skip games. Now, what this does is it prevents you from actually getting XP earned from playing the game. Like you can see, I just got 4 pet XP. You don't get that, but you're allowed to feed them a pet snack, which if you go here, press that, feed the pet, boom, they loved the snack. They might not always love the snack, they might just feel neutral to it, but you can see now I have games 1 out of 25. Once you have beaten all 25, you can skip the game. Again, the dance game is the game I would recommend. Now, from this, pet training costs different amounts of energy depending on the level. So at teen, it's going to cost 4, at adult, it's going to cost 6, and it keeps increasing, so on and so forth, and you only have a limited energy pool. Now, personally, how I recommend in the fastest way to train up a pet is simply to quest up a character. And the reason for that is that every time you level up, your energy is completely refilled. So you can see right now I have 55 max energy. If I went and leveled up, I would once again fill up to my max energy for that level. I can then go and train my pet and then go back to questing and keep training them up. So how I tend to train up pets if I'm training up for max character is sometimes I'll just make a new character and equip that pet on them and quest them through the worlds, and then every single time I level up, I'll come back to the pet pavilion, train them up a little bit more, and then rinse and repeat until they are max level. Now, another thing to point out with that method is that every time you complete a quest in this game, it gives you plus 4 pet experience, which isn't a lot, but when you consider the fact that Wizard City's 30 quests, Croctopia's 60, all of Arc 1 put together is like 300 times 4, 1200. That's enough to get your pet all the way up to from baby to ancient. So it is probably the best way to get pet XP is to just quest through the game, and then every time you level up, come to Pet Pavilion and train up your pet with pet snacks. Now, I think, unless I'm wrong, that should be pretty much it for this video. Now, obviously, there's way more to pets. Like, specific pets, there are, quite a few that are going to be really useful. And really, I just want to cap off this video with mentioning the fact that this video is meant to help you. It's not going to make pet training easy. Pet training in this game is not an easy thing. It takes a long time, it is a long process, and unless you get incredibly lucky, you're going to be hatching probably in upwards of 5 to 10 times. Sometimes even more if you're going for something hyper specific. If you want a specific pet from the hatching kiosk, it is a 50-50 chance of getting the pet, and you might just fail that coin flip many times. I know that there's been times where I've gone for a specific pet and then just never gotten that pet because I just failed a coin flip, because I suck at coin flips apparently. But I think that's it for today. If you have any added recommendations, if I missed something, please let me know in the comments. I'll make a comment and I'll pin it with literally all the information I might have missed. But I think that generally I got the overview, and this should be incredibly helpful at learning at least how to understand how pets work. So that's it for today. If you enjoyed, if you found this helpful, make sure to drop a like at the sub button. You can also join and become a channel member if you want. Thank you all for the support recently. I just hit 15,000 subs, which is really crazy given that I was at like 13.3, I think 2 weeks ago. Thank you guys all so much. I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a fantastic day.